Hello, everybody. There seems to be a movement. I don't know what it is, but this sort of movement just to go back on camera and keep speaking about that journey, conversion experience, and right through your journey, because I'm getting great discernment from speaking about it and then reflecting back over it again, seeing God on this journey, and the people and places, things, that have been revealing Him in my life, and I'm sort of looking back at the time from the World Youth Day, which I brought up lots, but coming home from World Youth Day, Pope John Paul had gave us, I stayed right to the end to get that blessing, knowing that you're going to be sent here, and this is the blessing that you get, like after Mass. Only here you were in Tor Vergata with the Pope, blessing you, sending you out. And he says, when you go home, put the Eucharist at the forefront of your life. And I can remember that clearly now. Clearly remember, put the Eucharist at the forefront of your life. And I did when I come home. That Eucharist again, and Eucharistic life was at the forefront. And I was in Dublin, living in Dublin. I was going in, was going into the Blessed Sacrament Fathers at that time. And, I had come back and had moved in with a friend in Dublin. And I had kept thinking about what the Pope had said in Rome about, I see in you the morning watchmen of the new millennium. And I heard this at the vigil at Tor Vergata. And this stirred and stirred and stirred. And I had already, at home, I'd already went through this with my brother, who had become he was wanting to go on and become a minister of the word as well. And maybe after seeing what happened, he probably, probably moved him a lot quicker to do it. Was when I says to him, I'm being stirred about what the Pope says, and but a morning, seeing you, the morning watchman. And I says, wonder, well, could the Lord show us what a watchman is in the Bible? Let me know what a watchman is. And we opened up the Bible, and every page we opened up the Bible, there was to do with a watchman, and it was awesome, as the Americans would say. It was awe-inspiring, and. Just those times in life when things like that happen, and you get this, it's like this, I don't even know how to explain it. In a way, it's awesomely scary, big, but in a way you're not surprised. The Lord can do these things, and He's doing them here and now. The Word of God is alive and active now. And that's what He was doing. So I was in Dublin. I was living in this place, this friend's place at the time. He was letting me stay there. He was working away somewhere. But then he would come and go. And I went to, I remember saying one day, go to there's a contemplatives in Kilmacud there. Go down to Kilmacud and go into the wee contemplatives there and ask them, do they know anything about, they would know about scriptures. Asked them what they think of the morning watchman. And I went into the Kilmacud Carmelite nuns, and I got friendly with this when I spoke to Shua, I think she was from Donegal or Derry. And very friendly wee nun, and I says to her, look, I was over with John Paul, World Youth Day, and I says, this stirring since I come home, stirred me for months. I says, is this morning what I see in you, the morning watchmen of the new millennium? And I says, I just want to know more and more about it. And I could see the startledness in her. I could really see, even in the contemplative nun, there was a wee bit of startledness there, a surprise. And she says, Martin, I just want to go back and get you something. And she came up with this big page from Observatore Romano, the Italian newspaper. And she says, this has just come in today from Rome. And it's a full spread by Cardinal James Stafford, he was the cardinal in charge of the laity. And he had done a reflection on what the Pope meant by speaking about the morning watchmen to the world youth. And this was what I was. And she was like, even her, I could tell, even her, there's something very providential here, So I got it and I took it away, and this was something that I believed. This was a message that Pope John Paul gave to us, and it was something that meant something very, very special to me. Something that touched my soul. And I remember him saying that night when he was reflecting on when I first heard "I Seen You, the Morning Watchman," and he said something like, "In years gone by, young people like you were called to gatherings, large gatherings like this, and taught the ways of evil and revenge. And he says those messianic systems have shown themselves to be absolutely horrendous." And then he said something like, "But you, in these times, you will defend peace, and you will defend peace with your lives if need be, and you will not let this world become, with poverty, and you'll do everything. Literally, you'll be doing everything against the poverty, against all that's unjust." And that's what he was saying. And so I thought, well, that's good. That's a good lay person could do that, And that was the Morning Watchman. But the thing that I took most from it was when he had 2 years later, when he was in Canada, he reflected back on it again, and he says, that I commissioned you to be the fearless preachers of the gospel. And the morning watchmen were those who had come through the night and met the risen Christ. And the reflection was on Isaiah 21, I think 11 and 12, and it was, watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? Morning comes soon, but night will return. Night will come again. Come back if you want to know more. That was it. And it was really based around the watchman being in a time of great darkness or great affliction of some sort, and he's being asked, how long is this night of affliction or torment or whatever it is going to go on? And the watchman's saying, the morning's coming, the light's coming, and that's the light of the morning is the dawn, where the sun rises. And that's what the Pope was referring to, was the sun, S-O-N, Jesus rising amidst the darkness. And we met him, and we would go in, and we've come through that night, we met the risen Christ, and we would go into these times of darkness, proclaiming when they're coming, and also within them proclaiming the risen Christ amidst these great darknesses. Powerful stuff now when I think about it. So this was something that I really took on board then, because it meant so much to me, because it was something that was like a vocation. It was like something that I could then, because I always believed there was a calling, that the Lord was calling me in some way, drawing me, and I'd been to the monastery, I had been with the Jesuits, I had tried, callings with the Blessed Sacrament Fathers and going to vocation things and that, but none of these things were working out. Lots of these places I went to, Lumen Day, Opus Day, all these vocational Carmelites, none of them had ever really worked out. But one priest had says to me, I think it was Father Tumblety, Brian Tumblety, God rest him, he was a curate in our parish, and I think Father Tumblety says to me one day, and I think he was the one who had asked me to go and see about Opus Dei. I think he was a member of Opus Dei or something. And he had says to me, he says, Martin, it was either him or a prior in Dublin, a Carmelite prior, who had says to me that when God called you to these places, he's calling you to teach you something. And it really, really, really sunk in and made sense, It's, you're getting up and going is what God's asking. It's your obedience. So when he called you somewhere and you're obedient to the call and you go, and if he wants to keep you there, he'll keep you there, and if not, but you're learning, you realise that later. So each place you go into, you've learned. So I thought that really, really, really makes sense. So these things for me were learning curves. And another learning curve was at that time was that was the that was the World Youth Day thing, and I'd been back and I was doing adoration at that time. I'd got very friendly, 'cause living in Dublin, a priest there, a Blessed Sacrament Father. There you are again, you see, Lord looking after me through the Blessed Sacrament Fathers again, because I'd been very close to them. I'd always been in and out of the Blessed Sacrament Chapel. Was when I was in Dublin from day one. When I had that conversion, I went to Dublin. I would always call into the Blessed Sacrament Chapel, and I was always well received there, and I was welcomed, very well welcomed, just like the Sisters Adoration in Belfast. Both those groups, I done a lot there, and I worked a lot with them, and loved that charism of the Blessed Sacrament like them. And the priest that was there, who took me under his wing, had been the general superior of the whole congregation of the Blessed Sacrament. His name was Father Ronald Hewitt, and he took me under his wing. And a strange thing happened at this time, and this is probably part of it, because I'd been doing a lot of adoration again with the Eucharist and all these things in Youth 2000, and all this was still going on. So I was doing a lot of work with Youth 2000 in Dublin at that time. And a few years before that, I had been with the co-founder fella, with me at Youth 2000. Both of us had been at a retreat in Tipperary, and there was a healing priest who had prayed with us with the monstrance, the Blessed Sacrament and the monstrance, and very, very powerful, because it's the Lord himself in front of you here, And he had says to me when he says, "Have you ever been to Medjugorje?" And I says, "No." And he says, "Well, Our Lady of Medjugorje is calling you there." And I remember, because I was a Legion of Mary, I was in the Legion of Mary, and I had known just how powerful the Blessed Mother is, and how she can get things done, and how, if she wants something done, she is the power of Jesus himself, to do these things. And I've seen that, so I wouldn't argue with her. And I says, into my mind, I remember saying very clearly after he says that, I says, "Well, if the Blessed Mother's calling me to Medjugorje, then I'll be in Medjugorje." And this was a few years later, and I'd met an air hostess who had come into another. I was leading a group of young people at another retreat in Youth 2000. She had come in to do a talk about Medjugorje, and she says, being an air hostess, she wanted to, that she felt that our Blessed Mother was calling her to fill a plane and go there to Medjugorje. And I remember chatting with that girl, and I says to her, "Do you know something?" I told her what the priest had said a few years ago. And I says, "You know something? I believe that if I'm going to be in Medjugorje, Blessed Mother wants me in Medjugorje, it'll be you that I'll be with, how I'll get there." And funny enough, this was 2002, 2003, it was about 4 years after that or something, and I had got a phone call from this girl that there was a seat empty, and if I wanted to go, I had to be, certain I'd be in the airport at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. And I can't go into all the things that happen, the providence of our Blessed Mother wanting to get you somewhere. And I knew Blessed Mother wants to get me there, watch and see what she can do. And it was very powerful on its own. And I'm so grateful for the people that the Lord worked through and their kindness and generosity to get me to where I had to be. Very specially close people to God and our Blessed Mother they were, because they were there to do those things for me and show me that providence. And before I was heading to the airport, I bumped into her. I forget how it was, but I'd met Father Hewitt, and I told him I'm going to Medjugorje, and he says, would you do me a favour? This was a strange request. And he says, I would like you, when you get to Medjugorje, I'd like you to go and ask our Blessed Lady what's the message from what message she has for me. What's her message for me? If she has a message, what is this message? What's her message for me? And I thought it was a strange request. This man asking me, as if I'm sort of thinking as if I'll go over and ask her Blessed Mother, what do you want a message for Father Hewitt, and she's going to explain a message to me, So I thought, all right, well, Father, right, I thought he was just maybe a bit doting. So I had left, and I was, as soon as we were in Medjugorje, I went straight to St James's, where we usually were going to do some adoration at the time, and I remember very, very clearly doing the adoration. I was kneeling in the pews, and the first time I was there, and I looked and I seen the Blessed Mother statue, the Medjugorje statue, and like the one just up above, see above my head, that my friend from the parish here brought me back from Medjugorje, Ricky, and so the statue is, the Blessed Mother is her hand like this, and then in the middle I was looking, and that was the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, and over was the cross. Jesus. And the very special thing about the cross, which I didn't know then, it was later when I looked into all this, what was happening, is the cross of Medjugorje. It's not so much Jesus on the cross, but Jesus stepped off the cross. It's like Jesus when he went into the Jesus that the apostles saw at Easter after he had risen, the nail marks in his hands and his feet and the crown marks. So he's risen and he's coming. He's showing them the marks in his hands and his feet. So I'm looking in it, and as I'm praying there, I start to get this like a wee vision, wee picture of Father Hewitt, and I see what he's afflicted by, and I start to cry, because of the pain the man's going through, and for this great compassion for him, how severe it is, and how long he's took this and this affliction, and I could saw how afflicting it was on him, and it was very, very sad, and hard to make me cry, but I was crying that time, and my eyes, tears were coming down. And I don't know what had happened, but during the tears, I began to relax. There was a sort of peace was coming out. The tears were probably good for me, whatever. But during the tears, I could see a movement. And I looked over, and it was the statue of Blessed Mother. The hand was moving. And her hand was like this is my son. And I could hear this voice. And I could have seen this hand going, and it was like a directing or pointing or guiding hand, to in reference. And she was in reference to, in her hand, this is my son, which was at the Eucharist, the Blessed Sacrament, exposed, and the cross. So this is my son, the Redeemer. I beg you to believe that my son loves you And the voice and the clarity and the truth, there's no words. I can articulate things, but I can't articulate this. There's no way to articulate how clear and truthful and honest and it was more, it was like whatever was being said, you could not deny it to be the truth. That what this voice was saying was so true that there was no denying its truth and what she was saying. This my son, the Redeemer. I'm the mother of the Redeemer. And then she started to tell me about. She started to say about why she was here. I'm here because my son came with a message of the Father, a message of the love of the Father, and Satan has found a way to veil that message, and that's so clear that it was. So Satan had found a way to veil the message that Jesus had brought, the gospel or the scripture, whatever that message. He has veiled it in some way and blinded people or blocked people from the. And she says, "I'm here to bring people back to my son, to the message of my son, the message of the Father." So that's all she, and she was there, and her humility was beyond anything I'd never experienced anything like the love that she had in her expression of her son. There was nothing, it was beyond me, the beautiful humility that she loved her son more than anything, and there was nothing of her at all. It was all for her son. So there was no any way her putting it about me or that it was all about him. The humility was beyond my perception. I just couldn't take in how this beautiful humility. And then she started to go tell me about the faiths of the Catholic faiths. Beautiful faiths that I'd read, because I'd got a lot of good solid doctrine books from a good friend that I used to visit, her and her husband, and she gave me a whole stalls of books and very solid books. So I'd known which was, and she was making this very clear, and that truth behind it. When she was saying it, and this voice was saying it, it was like the Spirit himself was speaking, the Spirit of truth himself. You couldn't deny what was being said, so you knew this was clear clarity. You could not deny. And then she says that when she says about the devil veiling the message of the Son, she says, the time is coming when the church will suffer the passion like my son. The church will go through its passion. That's what she says. That meant something to me too. That really, I was like inquisitive to that afterwards when I thought, what do you mean? The time's coming when the church will go through the passion, its own passion, like my son. But like my son, the church will rise in glory. And that was the message. So that was Medjugorje. And I says that to a few people over there, and then I come down and I started to find things like the statue and the cross, and they started to make sense, and they, I really did see this, and that's what that meant, and dear goodness me, that's what that meant, and the cross was Jesus risen, and he was happy, and he was smiling at me, smiling down at me, and she was saying, this is my... So when I went back home and I met up with Father Hewitt at some point later, and I did feel, to be honest with you, I did feel a wee bit embarrassed when I spoke to him, and I sort of threw it out, Father, that message you'd asked me to, and I knew the message, that was the message for him was a message for me, the message for me was a message for him, and the message for us was a message for everybody, and it was, I beg you to believe my son loves you. And that was the Father, Blessed Mother says, I beg you to believe her son loves you. My son loves you was the message. And not long, really, I heard then, not long after, Father Hewitt, God rest him, passed away. And I then, as I say, I then had been studying with the Jesuits, and I saw all this starting to take shape, and I thought, priesthood, this is really, all this stuff has to be something to do with the priesthood. It must be. People didn't get these things, So to be called with the Jesuits that time, I went with the Jesuits, and then I ended up leaving the Jesuits because in the last year I started drinking and going out with some of the young, more secular side of the college, in our class. And I was drinking away with them, and some of the seminarians were there too. And I just felt then at that time, I felt, no, I'm going to be a priest. I want to be a good priest. And I returned home. And then I decided to leave all this and go back to probably a bit like the apostle, leave all this and go back to what I was started with. In the first place was my plaster and my building. And I went to Cork. And I started working in Cork, and it was awful because I was working for a lot of boys, at the time, and it was just any young people in cities and stuff, and they were drinking and they were up to everything, and I thought, oh dear goodness me, to be stuck with this, in the van, and it was awful. And the speed of the van going to work and stuff, we were taking wing mirrors off cars and stuff like that. It was just mad and mayhem, and I was stuck in the middle of this, and it was very, very hard on me. Because I wasn't drinking, and I was going home, and I was, praying, and I one night I ended up then again, I hit the drink then, that was the time I hit the drink again, and I had come home, and I had a lovely apartment, I'd got myself a lovely apartment and done it up and all, and I come home and I put a few burgers into the wee oven, which was adjoined to the living room. And I fell asleep on the settee, and the settee was very low to the ground, just very, very similar to that, very low arm to the ground. And I fell asleep, and I heard a voice say, wake up, wake up. And my eyes opened, and the automatic reaction was, when I saw the smoke right at my nose, was if I move anywhere at all, if I move up at all, I'm into this thick smoke. Really, really, I just knew, but looking, this is bad. Black and real thick. And my first reaction was to go towards where I thought the door was. And the voice says it was like it nearly knew my thoughts, what I was going to think. And it was there to counter the thought of me moving. And it was right away, as soon as my thought was to go, it was like a counter. And it said, do not go over towards the door. You won't make it. You won't make it. But go and step on the window. So it was one of the big, tall windows with one of those wee open up latches at the top to open the window at the top. It says, go and stand on the ledge and open the latch and take the air from outside. And I did what I was told, and it was very authoritative voice. It was beautiful voice, but authoritative, and I done exactly what that voice, and a very caring voice. I knew that voice of 100% was doing this out of for me, for my good. 100% knew that this voice was doing that for my good. It was like someone, like your mother, who was wanting you to do something, for your own welfare, your own good. So I done that, stood up in the window, and then the voice said, don't go to the door until the smoke, and then go. And then I sat at the window, and the smoke sort of dropped, and it was being drawn at the window. And then I heard this, the voice says that I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And it was like those who live, will never die. And my explanation, like that clarity that I had at that time, what it meant was to me personally, and great clarity at that time, was that I was being assured, the message for me, or the assurance for me, was that you could have died and you were saved. I saved you from death. I'm proving to you that I can save you from death. And it's to let you know that I can also do that for you in the next life. So and even if you die in the next life, I can raise you up. And this was and it was a beautiful, beautiful, joyful message that I was saved from death, to prove to me, to assure me and let me know that, and what was being done there was to show me that even if you died with believing in me, even the believer like you dying, I'll still you're still going to be, I'll still rise you up. I can still save you from death. I still save you from death. That was the point. I save you from death. And I can do it now, or I can do it. And I proved that now. Something a bit like with it, like when Jesus says about forgiving the sins of the man and the paraplegic. And they all look at him and they go, well, what's easier? And then he goes, we both go, rise. And the man rises up. So it's like where you're looking at going, yeah, I save you from death. Well, I just proved it to you. It just says, you were just about to die and you were saved from it. So that is, I'll leave it at that again, and I'm going to move after and see where these things are, where they're leading to, and what meaning could be there, because they're very powerful things that happen. So again, thanks very much, and I'll be looking and reflecting back on this. Thank you.